welcome to the Modcast, episode 62.
I honestly, when you did that intro, had to repress a woo.
But you said it anyway.
I'm Wudge.
I'm Slime.
And I'm Cal, I've just remembered.
And speaking of people who have forgotten their names, how about that show, Steven Universe?
Yeah, it's Steven Universe. We're actually talking about it again. The last time we talked about it, season 4 had just started airing. And so, what do you guys think of seasons 4 and 5? The events that transpired, the reveals that were made.
The show has this ability to, with a simple reveal, change the entire context of the way you view the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That happened first with Mirror Gem. That happened again with Garnet's reveal. It happened again with the cluster. And A Single Pale Rose is kind of the culmination of that, where it fully changes the way that you view the character of Rose Quartz / Pink Diamond.
When that episode happened, I wasn't too on board with the reveal. It just kind of seemed a bit far-fetched, I guess. The double identity of Rose Quartz, and she's like trying to instigate a rebellion against herself. I don't know, it just all seemed rather odd to me, but I've come to grips with it. Like, I've been kind of more okay with it as more of the show has occurred.
It wasn't a hook out of left field for me. It was around Jungle Moon when Stevonnie is trapped on the planet and they have the dream where they are Pink Diamond. That was the exact moment that I was like, Rose Quartz was Pink Diamond. I know you have thoughts on this, Cal, about the reverse character development of Rose Quartz, where she starts off as this godly, untouchable being, and then the more and more you learn about Rose Quartz, the more and more stuff is taken away.
The entire idea is to break down this idea that she was this perfect person. But in doing so, they never make the effort to reconstruct it at the end into she's not all bad. While she did have flaws, she did change and try her best to be a good person. It feels like that's never really brought up.
It's this concept of Pink Diamond is Rose Quartz, but Rose Quartz is distinctly different from Pink Diamond.
Exactly.
I would put Rose Quartz and Greg Universe on the same level. The show directly mentions that they are almost parallel to each other in many ways, because they both come from this very strict upbringing, and they broke out of that mold to kind of just do their own thing and become their own person. That's why they connect so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting to see how, while Greg is shown as being this good father figure, which in some instances he's really kind of not, versus, yes, did Pink Diamond abandon Spinel on a planet? And was that very bad? Yes. Did she, cause an entire war which endangered thousands of millions of lives? Yes.
I mean, that last point, she was doing it to save billions and billions of lives, and she succeeded in that, and yet she doesn't really get the credit for it ever.
It does feel weird that it's just sort of been left as the Rose Quartz bad.
The whole ending of the show, I thought, felt kind of rushed. It honestly felt like that, I think, as well, because of all the transformations that they had to, cram in there, all the fusions. It felt like they just wanted to have him in there because the show was going to wrap up.
The whole point of change your mind is to, change someone's mind about something. The thing is that kind of isn't the message of the show before that point, really.
There's a distinct moment, the end of the Familiar song, where he's like, and I'll stop their reign of terror across space. And then immediately it flips to being about making them accept Steven. I think that plotline of getting them to accept Steven is done well. It's just that that's not the point that it was going for before.
If the show had ended with season 5, I would have been okay with it. It was in no way a perfect finale, but it was a finale, and it could have ended there. I don't really like that the corrupted gem thing happened as quickly as it did, because when you think about it, the corrupting gems arc, that's been there since the very beginning, that through line, and to see it wrapped up so quickly, it's kind of a little bit like the Malachite thing and the cluster thing, which we all mentioned it in the last episode we did on Steven Universe, that it felt really rushed, and it is, but I think the point of the show is not about the big battles, it's about the not big battles.
The conflicts in Steven Universe often get resolved from a mutual understanding. It isn't necessarily solved by one person vanquishing another, and often that process doesn't take very long in terms of the episodes, I mean, so maybe that's why it kind of feels rushed.
The diamonds flip very quickly, and I was not a big fan of that at all. These are portrayed as being literally tyrannical dictators, and now suddenly they're just good guys? But it definitely felt in the beginning like, we're not being good because we want to be good, we're being good because we liked pink. And you are, I guess, pink, so we'll, I guess, follow you.
Especially at the beginning of the movie, there's a line where it's like, but we've done all these things. Won't you come live with us? And Steven's like, yeah, it's great that you've done these things. Bye.
What do you guys think of the movie?
It's a good
It's
movie.
a really
It's
good movie.
It's a great musical.
I really like Spinell, and I really like what she brought to the table. She was really the perfect villain that could have been pulled in for that movie.
It acted very well as an epilogue or a continuation of the series, because there is a time skip.
That was a perfect thing to do as well, just because the whole point of the story really is that the concept of a perfect happily ever after just doesn't exist and can't really exist. Spinell's like, well, what are you gonna do? And Steven's like, I'll always have to be a hero.
I do think it's funny because, like, the movie ends with Steven saying, happily ever after never ends. And then Steven Universe Future is what it is.
Looking back at the series as a whole, I think the very first time you really see it is the test episode where, like, Steven's like, give me a test! And then they make this test that he can't lose. When he realizes that, he gets super mad. But then he spies on the gems and they're like, we don't know what to do with him. We don't know what we're doing. And he, at that moment, decides that he is going to take responsibility for them. It's this character moment for Steven where he begins to take on responsibility of others.
And putting their feelings above his own.
Right. It's this through line throughout the entirety of the series is Steven is willing to do anything to help people. In the movie, it's been, 2 years.
And his work here is done. Who does he help?
Yeah, his work here is done. And that kind of hasn't sunken in fully until Future, where he's like, if my whole purpose is to save people, then what do I do if no one needs saving?
Yeah.
And that's such a great conclusion to the character. But the movie, first of all, the music is spectacular.
I love Other Friends and, like, Spinell's whole 1930s Fleischer animations.
And her very swing styled music.
I like most of the songs, particularly, like, Happily Ever After. And also the song with Steg.
Last episode, I was struggling to say what my favorite fusion is. I no longer can say that. It is Steg. Purely for the fact that Steg exists. What is also interesting is that some people might look at that scene and be like, it's weird that Opal is there because there really isn't a reason for her to be there in that scene. But the voice actors for Steg and Opal are real people and they are in a band together. I just find that really neat. I do really like Steven's design in the movie, and Steven's design in Future is okay. And I do like that they aged Steven in a very good way. And it's also great because that means Zach Carlson doesn't have to use his child voice.
Yes.
So, Steven Universe Future.
Yes, Steven Universe Future.
Future.
The final
Here we are.
season. We see Steven uncorrupting gems. They've been basically teaching the gems about kind of Earth culture, customs, and whatnot, how to integrate, kind of be who they want to be, as the Empire doesn't have them chained anymore to what their functions used to be. And that is something that Steven grapples with in the episode with Amethyst. There's this whole program that Amethyst has made for gems to get jobs, and Steven really has this idea that they should break out of their comfort zone.
What if the reason that Steven is so set on these gems finding things that are different from what they're doing before is because that's what Steven realizes that he needs to do and is struggling with?
Even at the end of the episode, Amethyst says, let's talk about your future, Steven. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do?
I really do like the first episode because Jasper plants this seed in Steven's mind of, if you can't help anyone, then what even is your purpose?
She thinks that Steven is incredibly pitiful, and that kind of causes him to glow pink and fight back against her. The pink Steven is the through line in Future.
It is the pure manifestation of his emotional state. That is also a through line throughout the series, is that Steven's powers are controlled by emotion. It wasn't clear when the series first started, who's going to be the villain? And I was like, well, maybe it's the Diamonds. And we got the promo. It's got like all these different villains on it. There's this giant space monster in the background. Maybe all these people band together and they form an alliance of evil to fight against the crystal gems. But like, that's not the purpose of Future. It's not, we have to beat the bad guy. It is, I am the bad guy. The first couple episodes just felt like it was drifting, like it didn't really know where it was going. I think by episode 10, it became very clear who the villain in quotation marks of the series was, and it's Steven.
The Cactus Steven episode is like one of the big turning points, I think, because it's literally a mirror image of Steven, and we actually see how there's all these grievances that Steven has had about the gems. All of his emotions are so pent up. And the only person that he can talk to is this cactus version of himself.
When it starts repeating those, he starts lashing out against it. And that lashing out against it is what makes it the monster. He creates that monster.
At the end, Cactus Steven grows flowers after the hug, but then he leaves. Throughout Future, a lot of Steven's friends are moving on, and he just can't cope with that, and so it's just kind of literally himself, like his reflection, like this part of him leaving, that I find kind of interesting, but then there's still that flower, so it's like a reminder of him. Just because your friends leave doesn't mean that they're still not your friends. There's kind of that idea, I feel, that's encapsulated in that episode.
And Little Graduation, that really is the turning point when literally Steven is physically and mentally not wanting his friends to leave. In Dreams with Peridot, that is a very good episode because Steven and Peridot's relationship hasn't really been touched upon since the very first Peridot arc in season 2.
He doesn't know how to keep being friends with people without something to fix, especially in the case of Peridot. They fixed the cluster together.
Right. No, that is the entirety of the basis of their friendship is because they were trying to fix something.
Yeah.
And I do like how, like, Peridot's not being insensitive. It's just, she just doesn't know what's going on with him. As soon as she does realize what's going on with him, she's like, no, Steven, please, no more movies. If this is hurting you, then stop. No. I just really like that. The second half of Future, it is a very obvious regression of Steven's character where he is just totally losing it.
In Bismuth Casual, he feels like he just can't talk to real people anymore because they're talking about school, and he just doesn't have that kind of connection. He feels like he's drifting away from Connie as well.
It's this concept of, well, Connie has her own life, and if I'm not directly next to her always, then it's impossible that we can even stay together. And that's together forever. That is the whole point of that episode. Steven has not had a normal life.
No.
He has had an extremely abnormal life where, like, okay, yeah, most kids aren't saving the universe and all that jazz, but even before that, he's never been to the doctor. He's never been to school. He has no frame of reference for these normal human things. There's some pretty serious psychological consequences to something like that. And it all kind of culminates in Mr. Universe where, like, Steven sees what his dad grew up with, and he's like, no, this was better. It really is Mr. Universe that you start to see the beginning of this extremely self-destructive behavior that Steven is exhibiting. Because I don't think in that instance where he accidentally crashes the car that his goal was, I'm going to destroy my father. No. It is more himself. And that is also, I think, the reason why in Fragments, he goes to Jasper, because Jasper's the only one that will actually not talk to him about this issues that he's having. But also, I think, on a subconscious level, he kind of wants Jasper to, like, beat him up.
He's training with Jasper, and, like, he stops being vegetarian. I think that's definitely part of it. He is literally beating himself up.
And actually shatters Jasper.
Yep, straight up kills Jasper. When that happened, I was like, oh, okay. Because here's the thing, for everything that Rose Quartz did, as far as we know, never shattered another gem. It crosses this line where now Steven is, on a technical level, worse person than his mother. Obviously, Jasper is brought back, so it's not huge ramifications there, but major psychological ramifications.
Homeworld Bound is where he goes to the Diamonds and tries to, like, fix his problems, and the Diamonds all have kind of terrible solutions that in no way actually help. And Steven has a lot of pent-up emotions about the diamonds. He really has not forgiven them at all.
And I think to a certain extent, it's frustrating to him when he goes to Homeworld and he sees that, like, yes, the diamonds are being punished. It's a throwaway line, but it's very clear that, like, there's elections happening on Homeworld with the Zircons, and the diamonds are not in power anymore. And they are being punished in that they're being made to make up for the terrible things they've done. But I think it's kind of somewhat frustrating to Steven that, like, they're kind of enjoying helping. And that's something that he no longer feels like he's able to do. And to see them succeeding, it's hard for him.
He tries smashing White Diamond's head in, and it's this moment where it's all this frustration he has with the diamonds, but it's at the exact same moment all the frustrations he has with himself. It is the almost culmination of his self-destructive behavior, because it's not the culmination of it, because
he turns into a huge
guess
worm.
what happens? He turns into Godzilla.
He was his own monster the entire time.
To me, it wasn't a huge surprise, but it was just terrifying.
I think part of the tension of the season, he is supposed to be, that's the direction he's going, and the tension is like, well, how's he going to get there? And how bad's it going to get? And the answer to both those questions is, it's not going to be fun.
I do like that everything's fine is in there, because it is really just Steven trying to desperately hold on to the last remaining bits of what mental stability he has. Everything else has failed, so let's just try to shove everything as far down as possible and just ignore anything. But spoiler, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't, does it?
He needs his friends to help him. It's like that phrase in Watchmen, like, who watches the Watchmen? It's who Stevens the Steven. It's gotta be his friends. The resolution is that he then goes off and tries to figure out who he is. It's just such a great conclusion to the show. Like, I think it is the definitive conclusion.
I'm very glad that the show doesn't end with, and now I know who I am.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know who he is and where his direction is going, but he's got the support system and he's on a journey to figure it out. And I think that is the best message that could have been sent. I've never heard of or seen a show, at least in Western animation, that touches upon psychological issues this strongly or this directly. It is very interesting, and I think a good thing that this show exists.
There's unusual resolutions often to the conflicts that occur, and I think that's kind of what makes it quite a unique show.
It's a good and consistent ride the whole way through, in my opinion, with a few exceptions, and I do heavily recommend it.
I would also recommend it.
I do too.
Onion, it never ages. What is Onion? Who knows? Okay, bye.
No, we forgot Onion. He's fine.